say something here before we get going, just in case everybody drops out. But I definitely have to thank Corey and Joe for all their work that they put into this. This was amazing. It takes a lot of effort to do this, and they worked very good as a team. We've had a very good platform here. It's been very stable all day. Haven't had any issues. We've had some great presenters, some real nice information. I wouldn't mind seeing this again, even even once we get Hamfest back up and going. This was a lot of fun today, and I hope we continue with this. Um, uh, I don't have a lot to share. I did do earlier this year. I did a little bit of research in some interference in the southern part of the state, and I think some of that is possibly software incompatibility in the packet radio field. Um, I'm going to try to get back down there. I downloaded another packet program, go back down there again at some point and listen to that and see what's going on. We do have another interference issue north of here. I probably will email Riley later on today, see what we can do with that one. That one was confirmed by Central Maine Power at a grow facility. They're assuming it is the lighting in the building, the LED lighting, but they're not certain. But we're going to work on that. And then one other thing that Corey has been great working on is we did a club survey, basically trying to figure out club status, basically affiliation back to the league, and how these clubs are gaining and retaining their members, and what they do. Maybe that's what's retaining or gaining these people. Do they have hands-on? Do they have in the field stuff? Is it club meetings every month, or maybe it's not? So it's been a bunch of different stuff there, and still got some information I'd like to try to gather as far as the age span of the participants in these groups. Are they? I'm assuming they're mostly going to be older people. That seems to be the way it is with the ham radio stuff. But maybe we've got an area group that's got a bunch of younger ones, and figure out how they got them into the club, what got them interested in that. Um, so that's about all I have. Phil has a little bit to go over, and so I guess at this time I'll turn it over to Phil, let him talk about what he's going to, and then we'll open it up for some questions and answers toward the end. But don't want to keep everybody too awful late today. So go ahead, Phil.
Okay, thank you very much, Bob. And thank you for inviting me here today. I apologize I didn't get the chance to attend as many talks as I wanted to. I had volunteered before this Hamfest came up to speak at a radio club meeting at noontime, and that took out a lot of a block of time there. In fact, I just missed hearing the volunteer monitoring talk. I've got a PowerPoint presentation that's hopefully not too long. Let me turn on my screen share here. And feel free to interrupt at any point along the way if you have questions. Everyone see this okay?
Yes.
Okay. Very little bit about me here. Originally from Indiana, been a New Englander since '79, and I've held the vice director appointment since September of last year. I'm involved with the local field organization in Eastern Massachusetts as an an assistant section manager. And I also chair the New England Division Convention program. So that keeps me pretty busy. A few quick words about the field versus the board. They're two distinct positions, that of section manager and director. The directors, of course, are the voting members of the board. They determine policy on a national level, but they also listen to their constituency. I'm I guess you would call a hot standby in case something happens to Fred Hopengarden, K1VR. I'm there to take over, to fill his shoes, and as such, am privy to all the same information that he is. in terms of our mailing list and other discussion. I think the section manager has the hardest job, actually. Having served multiple terms as section manager, I think, and Bob can attest to this as well. It can be very challenging, as can the role of a club president, actually. I've done that too, and if the job is done right, that's also a big responsibility. Real quick here, the league's mission statement. I won't bother to read these bullet items. It's a nice, colorful slide. I like to include it. Lots of folks look at the ARRL and they instinctively think QST. It's, of course, much more than a magazine, and it's much more than one magazine. There's On the Air, which is the brand new publication. I don't know if you can see. I'm holding it up here.
Yep, yeah, we can see that.
A little bit more on that magazine in a moment. But there are actually 4 magazines, any of which you can make your primary print publication. You don't have to get QST by mail. You can get one of the other 4, but all 4 are available electronically online to see. I think regulatory advocacy plays a huge role for ARRL. That's probably where there's the biggest bang of the buck for your membership. Logbook of the World, if you're at all active on the air in contests, you've probably used LOTW or heard of it. We have a very active bookstore, lots of products. I'll have a slide on that in a moment. We, of course, sponsor contests, as does CQ Magazine, but there's one going on right now. In fact, the ARRLDX contest is going on right now. And awards, lots of awards. The league maintains a technical information service. If you ever get stumped with some technical issue, you can always, help is just a phone call away. You can always call someone in Newington and get some pointers. League maintains an active volunteer examiner coordinator program, along with W5YI and some others. And of course, W1AW, which is on the air every day. It's not taking visitors at the moment, but I've seen some excellent virtual tours that Joe down there, whose call I'm spacing out on, the station manager, has provided to some radio clubs. And the league maintains a very active field organization dealing with lots of different areas. I'll just mention that our new ARRL CEO has asked me to join a working group to evaluate the field organization, how well it's working, and what sorts of improvements we can make upon it, and what resources we can bring to help section managers and club coordinators do their job. So I'm always looking for input from folks on that area. The league maintains 2 buildings they own outright, the W1AW building, which faces the street, and directly behind that, the headquarters building. They also lease a fairly large warehouse from which publications are shipped. Here's a shot of the headquarters building. Approximately 94 part-time and full-time employees and various functions and departments down there. The lifelong learning department is probably the newest of the bunch. I'll get into that in a moment. What's new lately? Well, probably the most significant is the hiring of David Minster, NA2AA, who has a tremendous number of great ideas. I've heard him speak a number of times now, and in fact, he heads up this little working group that I've been invited to join. And I'm very, very impressed with the gentleman. He's very forward thinking. He wants to move the league away from sort of the print mentality into the internet. He stresses podcasts, video blogs, those sorts of things, but he's also very active on the air. The other big hire was a new emergency management director, Paul Gilbert, KE5ZW. you'll be hearing more about that in the future. Here's David Minster's bio. I understand he's also a collector of telegraph keys, which is interesting. And as you can see, he's done everything from packet to satellite telemetry. He's gone on de-expeditions. Very much a generalist. He's dabbled in a lot of things, which I appreciate. Here's Paul Gilbert's bio. Very active in emergency communications. He's been a section manager in Texas. And I think where is it here? Something about the Texas, can't find it now. He's been involved with FEMA as well. Wanted to stick this slide in here. It's a little out of sequence, but for those of you who enjoy Field Day, just a reminder that the same rules we had in place for 2020 for COVID will apply again in 2021. The change that was made this year, there's a new power limit for Class D and Class E stations, 150 watts. So someone won't be running a kilowatt from home like they could last year. Full rules are available at arrl.org/fieldday. Let me wet my whistle here for a moment. Lifelong Learning is probably the League's newest program. It was launched in the fall of 2019. And it's aimed not only at newcomers, but people of varying degrees of skill and expertise in the hobby. They call it a series of learning tracks, learning opportunities for new and old hams alike. You may have seen some of the presentations on Zoom and YouTube of late. There've been a number, they've been recorded. So if you go to that page or Google it on the League's website, you'll find a number of talks that they've presented already. Publications. The League has broken up its traditional Radio Amateur's Handbook into a 6-volume set. You can also get the big thick book if you'd like. Same with the antenna book. It's now a boxed set. The Contesting for Beginners, I think, is a new book, as is Low Band's ham radio for the 2200, 630, and 160 meter band. Coming soon, or it may be out already, I'm not sure, Grounding and Bonding. The League, of course, doesn't get by on membership dues alone. So they do have a very busy bookstore with lots of things, not just books, but clothing, kits, maps, pins, you name it. All sorts of interesting things. So if you've not stopped by the ARRL bookstore lately, give it a look. You might find something of interest. Coffee mug, perhaps. On the Air, I mentioned that a moment ago. It premiered at the beginning of last year. And it's accompanied by a monthly podcast, which is interesting. I think what surprised them was that 20,000 ARRL members have chosen OTA as their primary print publication. So that's kind of neat. Slide's probably redundant because we had Riley on a moment ago, and unfortunately I missed him. But I will say that the program was rolled out February 2020, headed by Riley, assisted aptly by Dan Henderson, N1ND at headquarters. And I understand they have about 165 active volunteer monitors nationwide now. I'll just mention one success story that I heard recently. There was an interference issue on 40 meters between a net well, between ECARS, the East Coast Amateur Radio Service on 7255, and another group, another net. And it got to the point where they were basically jamming one another. Riley stepped in. I guess he negotiated some sort of an agreement with them, some peace, and that issue has been resolved now without having to escalate it to the FCC. So I think that's what he's probably striving for, is to resolve these things without escalating them to the FCC. Volunteer Examiner Coordinator Program is going along well, even in this day and age of COVID. I don't know how many VE teams have started testing again in person. We don't have too many doing that yet here in Eastern Massachusetts. There's still a large number of exams taking place remotely on Zoom. I happen to be a member of an active VE team that's doing that. And I'm happy to report that we hold anywhere between 3 to 5 exam sessions a week and process 2, 3, 4 individuals at a time, not simultaneously, but within the space of an hour to an hour and a half. We'll examine individuals one-on-one or 1-on-3, at least 3 VEs, one examinee. I've heard of sites in New York State doing drive-in testing. And I think there was also one in Providence, Rhode Island doing that. This is the remote VE testing team that I'm a member of, New England Amateur Radio. They were one of the first to get involved under the ARRL program, headed up by Bob Finney, K5TEC, who also heads up a really neat makerspace setup in Natick, Massachusetts, with lots of youngsters. And a quick fact sheet on the ARRL VEC. They're still the largest VEC in the country. I've got a slide coming up here that talks about the FCC wanting to expand the number of VECs, and I'll get to that in a moment. Regulatory advocacy. There have been a number of report and orders, NPRMs, over the past 6-8 months. One biggie was this report that affects the 3.3 to 3.5 gigahertz band. ARRL filed a petition for reconsideration. We didn't want to lose our secondary status on the band. I'll get to that in a moment. Another one, which I'm sure most people have heard of, notice of proposed rulemaking sought to raise our fees from $0 to $50 for a 10-year license or change of address or vanity call sign. The league fought that vigorously. They mounted a PR campaign to solicit a large number of comments. More on that in a moment. There was a public notice in January seeking input into possible expansion of the number of volunteer examiner coordinators. ARRL filed comments on that last month. So back to the 3.3 gigahertz band issues. The FCC proposed to do something that they'd never done before. They wanted amateurs to cease on a date consistent with the first possible grant of flexible use authorizations to new users. In other words, the first folks that came along that wanted to use the spectrum, we would have been kicked off. And the ARRL asked in their petition of reconsideration, why? This departs from your earlier spectrum policy. Filing against our petition for reconsideration was, of course, the CTIA, which represents U.S. wireless communications industry interests. They filed an opposition in late December. I'm pleased to say, and this is not official, this is still unofficial, the FCC released a draft of its decision, its upcoming decision. They're going to discuss it March 17th. But in a nutshell, this draft would allow us to continue using 3.3 to 3.4 gigahertz while negotiations continue. I'll not read all of the bullet items here, but as you can see, we'll be allowed to continue with many of our modes, Earth, Moon, Earth, weak signal work, and would be able to use, hopefully, 3300 to 3450 megahertz under the same secondary status as we have right now. We'd have to completely withdraw from 3450 to 3500 in about a year. Again, this is not in concrete, but this is what they're proposing. So hopefully we'll retain a foothold on that band. That's very important spectrum, even if you don't use it. I saw Mitch Stern on her earlier. I know Mitch uses it along with his other friends. But the spectrum is used out west, I'm told, by emergency communications groups that monitor for forest fires and other things like that using fast scan television. NPRM docket 2270 was the big one there where they wanted to raise our fees to $50. As you've probably heard, the FCC has scaled that back to 35. They agreed with the ARRL's comments and the comments of many, many other amateurs. In fact, 3,800 comments were filed that this was probably too high to be justified by the amount of staff work. I have to say the ARRL mounted a very good PR campaign. I got out and stumped as well. I talked to over a dozen radio clubs and showed folks how easy it was to file comments on the FCC's website. That's stored on the ARRL website in case new dockets and PRMs come up in the future. You can Google like reply comments and find a very easy step-by-step tutorial on how to get on their site and file them. It's painless, it's easy compared to the old days where you had to file paper and you had to have your petition in a certain format. So again, $35 it looks like. No date has been determined yet for this fee collection, but probably sometime this summer. Here's the one I mentioned earlier where the FCC was petitioned to expand the number of volunteer examiner coordinators. In February, the league filed comments saying, we don't think so. We think that we're handling things just fine. We and the other volunteer examiner coordinators, I think there are about a dozen, including W5YI, Laurel, Anchorage, Alaska, Amateur Radio Club, Greater Los Angeles, Amateur Radio Group. 10 to 12 months for calendar year 2020. Even though there was severe disruption throughout the nation with COVID, the exam opportunities and numbers were strong. So the league has come out in opposition to this. They feel that it's just going to overcomplicate things and it's not necessary. And this wasn't an NPRM or I'm not sure what it was exactly, but the FCC came out and said, we're going to start requiring that all filing be done electronically and that they include email addresses. This at first raised some concerns among amateurs that might not have internet access, might not have electronic mail. The FCC has stated they will make waivers available to folks who still need to file by paper, which is good. I don't think there's any way that amateurs can appeal this or file comments. I think they just waved their magic wand and said, we're going to do this. And this will happen probably June 29th. I'm told that emails will be required on any filings. Bob, if it's okay, I have a fun little quiz here that I want to go through with folks.
Yeah, definitely. Go right ahead.
Okay. We'll see how folks are up on their ARRL history here. And this deals with Hiram Percy Maxim. I'm going to show a series of questions, or statements rather, A through E, And I want you to tell me which of the statements is not true. And just, I don't know what, Corey, if you can unmute everybody so that they can just shout out Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo. Or if not, we can do
Yep.
it in the, okay, great.
Allow them to unmute themselves.
A, this is kind of a dead giveaway. He's the co-founder of the ARRL. I'll give you this one. We know that's true.
Yeah.
Bravo. He invented the first commercially successful firearm silencer.
Correct.
Charlie. Well, wait till I get through all of them. He is buried in West Hartford, Connecticut. Delta. He experimented with powered flight. Echo. He developed mufflers for internal combustion engines. So go ahead, shout out which one you think is not correct.
B.
Bravo. Use phonetics, please.
Delta.
Delta. Delta.
Delta.
Delta.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, that was buried at Poughkeepsie.
Anyone else? Well, whoever said Poughkeepsie, I think he was buried in Maryland. So the answer is C, Charlie. He's not buried in West Hartford, Connecticut.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
That one stumps almost everybody. I'm not next to Wikipedia, but I think it might be Bethesda. I may be wrong on that, but.
Oh, I know where it is. Yeah, I know where it is too.
Okay, tell us where he was buried.
I mean, it's in Southern Maryland. I'm trying to think where it is right now. My mind isn't working, but yeah, because I figured if he was buried in West Hartford, there'd probably be a pilgrimage made to his grave.
Probably.
At least by some of us.
Yeah. So again, I want to thank you, and we'll mention that Corey has been involved with a division-wide effort started by the affiliated club coordinator in Connecticut. He wants to bring together all affiliated club coordinators in the New England division to meet on a at least quarterly basis, although at the moment we're meeting roughly monthly, to kick together ideas on how to improve our radio clubs, because I've always, as a former affiliated club coordinator, I've always felt that clubs are the lifeblood of amateur radio, and we need to do everything we can, especially in this day and age of COVID, to make sure that they grow, they flourish. And so we've been kicking ideas around. And Corey, you want to say a few words about that?
Sure. So yeah, we've had good conversations, and I thank the Maine clubs for their participation in the survey. Phil, I don't know if you had a chance to look at that survey that I drafted, but I think it asks a lot of good, relevant information. It's like, if we're going to ask about some things, if we have their attention, why not ask a few more and really paint a better picture of the health and status of our clubs? And I developed this survey not just for Maine. I'm thinking more grandiose, and anyone in New England can use this. So they can select by county and state within the New England region if any other ACCs want to develop this. But I'm happy to report, looks like 16 clubs in Maine have already filled out that survey. So we're really able to get a good indication of what's going on with the health and status of our clubs. Averaging all of the clubs, I haven't looked at the newer ones, but when I looked at when we had 13 clubs submitting, retention rate was about 54% overall from those 13 clubs. But I will take a look at the newer data that's come in. So it kind of helps give us an idea of what's going on.
Excellent. And I can't wait to see the feedback input from the other club coordinators in New England. I know in Maine, you sort of have a unique situation there in that each of your districts have ASMs that act almost independently as affiliated club coordinators. So that's interesting model there, Bob. So maybe, Bob, you want us to open it up to questions both for you and for me?
Yeah, definitely. We're about half past the hour, so we'll do that. If anybody's any questions, they can raise their hand. Corey can unmute them, and we'll take those.
Well, we're still kind of in free-for-all status, so everyone's unmuted at the moment. So let's see how that works. Let's see
Well, John has his hand up, John Tarbox.
John, you should be able to unmute yourself. I did give.
I have.
Okay.
Hi, John Tarbox, WA1KLI. And first, I'd just like to say a big thank you to the league. I've been licensed since I was in junior high school in the 1960s. And one year for Christmas, I asked my parents to give me a life membership to ARRL. And if I remember correctly, it cost maybe $130 back in the 1960s. And it's probably one of the best investments. And some of you may have had the situation where during your life, you're active for a while, then you're inactive. But getting that QST every month kept the connection. And now my parents have passed on. And every month when I get it, I think of them and giving that to me from back in the 1960s. So that's, that's probably the best $130. So, you might consider giving a life membership to a young person you're trying to member. But my question, guys, is I have a specific situation up here in my small town of Phillips, where there's a grow house that's causing interference. And you, Bob, you may remember I emailed you about this. And it so happened, long and short, Central Maine Power came out, dropped power to the building, and the interference immediately went away. And I think grow houses and lights, I read about them in QST. I think it's become a big issue for a lot of ham radio, the background noise. And the thing I'm looking for, I found it, so it's not a technical question, it's a political question. Like particularly since the grow house is illegal in our town, does the league have some guidance or the best way for hams to go about getting these things resolved? In other words, if I call the FCC field office, they're not going to be out here tomorrow morning with a truck to do it for me, right? What's the best way politically that with the growth of all these grow lights where we can work together as hams? Because I think it's a common problem. Thank you.
Wow. You want to try that one, Bob?
Yeah, well, this is the one when we first got going this afternoon. I was telling that, I was going to email this down to Riley, see where we can go, if there's any legal ramifications toward this grow facility. I don't know where the amateurs stand on that level, but I'm sure there must be something that can be done. Maybe these fixtures are not meeting, the specifications that they're supposed to, but I think I'll shoot those emails down to Riley, see where we stand there and see what response we get from down there. He may forward them on, to the league. I don't know, but he's definitely the place where I'm going to send those to get things going.
I would also, oh, sorry.
I was going to say, really appreciate that, Bob.
Yep.
I would also recommend that you call headquarters and ask for their technical information desk. They may have some thoughts on enforcement issues in terms of a device that radiates.
Okay.
But local law enforcement, town government, I don't know.
Well, I mean, enforcement of incidental radiators is essentially a federal thing. In other words, my background noise on all the HF bands is about 10 dB over S9. And when the power company, Central Maine Power, dropped the line, it went down to like S1.
Bob,
Yes, go ahead.
if you get a hold of the league, the red book talks specifically to unintentional radiators, and that's what that is.
Okay.
There are guidelines in the red book I'm talking about is the Communication Act.
Okay.
Okay, and there are specific limits and they talk to intentional and non-intentional radiators. That would be an unintentional radiator.
Okay.
Be able to work something that way.
Sure.
So
Steve,
anyway, basically I should call down to the league and ask for the technical desk.
I would, yes.
Yeah, because part of what I'm thinking about is, you remember, like back in the 50s and 60s, we always had the interference to the neighbor's television, and running over to the neighbor and say, it's not my problem, it's your TV, is not politically good for radio amateurs in terms of putting us in the best light. So that's why, and not to mention if somebody's doing all illegal and you call and knock on his door, if he's willing to do something illegal, he's maybe not motivated to be.
Exactly.
So, I was hoping there was some way, because I'm sure it's a common problem to a lot of people, right?
Back when I was
section manager, I had a problem with interference from a grow light facility, and the ham, who was very active on contests and that sort of thing, was not able to operate because of the grow light. So anyway, what it turned out was that the chain big box hardware store that sold him the lights, they were illegal lights. They were not brought into the country legally for resale, and they would do nothing about it. He ended up having to he bought a new set of lights for the person who was using them and gave them to him. But the fact that you're not getting any cooperation, or at least there wasn't any cooperation back then on the on solving the problem. And I think this is something that needs to be pressed a little bit, have the league press with the justice system to be able to prosecute these people, that these big box stores that sell these lights. The one that was using the lights, by the way, bought them in good faith from the hardware store.
A number of hands up. Should we move on?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Steve,
Thank you.
KD10.
Steve.
You're
Oh,
muted.
go
Steve.
ahead. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Steve. You should have ability to unmute. Everyone, there you go.
There we go. How we go? Just comments, couple of comments. First of all, to Pete, who years ago, I got one 3 years ago. I should have got one 20. I've been a ham 27 years. It's no longer 120, as you know, but it was worth. It is a great thing to have, and I'm glad I bought it one 3 years ago. As far as the surveys, our club did fill out the survey, and wanted to add one of the spikes we've seen in memberships recently due to this. I say due to this COVID thing. For one thing, we're having Zoom meetings, and lack of better terms, the survivalists or whatever, the doomsday people, they're thinking radio, we had some members, I've had people come up to me about, what can I do? What kind of radio do I need? We want to get into radio. So we've had a lot of spike in memberships, more so in the last many years. We have the highest membership we've had in years, because I've been the treasurer for 25 years now, for Waldo County Club here in Mid-Coast, Maine. And we just opened up paying membership dues online on our website with PayPal, and within days, I had people I didn't even know from other counties join, and last week I had 2 more join. So having an availability of membership on your club website, I think has helped us a little bit. And with this whole COVID thing, it's allowed people to say, hey, I'm going to look up a ham radio club and I'm going to join them. So that's kind of my comments on one of the items I filled out in the survey. And I think that survey is good to have. We're pretty active club by doing, we've now brought back up fox hunts, and we help with the county with canoe races, and that generates interest. We try to diversify, and our club is actually growing a little, which I've seen it fail, and I've seen it not fail, but I've seen it lose members. I see it growing. So that's just a couple of my ideas. And the other thing for, and I want to thank Bob. Bob was able to come to our meeting, and I think that's a good thing to be able to, when he can or whatever, get to some of the club meetings around the state. I know it's a big state, but, and Phil, you said you're part of the New England Hamfest. Is that the New England Expo? Is that correct?
Yes, that's the other name for it, Ham Exposition.
Because we was all set to go last fall, and when you get a chance, or could you just, I'm pretty excited about the new location and maybe the new whatever you have to offer there, and have plans to go forward with it this fall, or is that up in the air?
We are planning to go forward in September. If you go to hamexposition.org, it's I'm blanking out on the actual date. Is it the second week of September?
Yes, 11th,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, we're definitely planning. We'll be in the new location in Marlborough, Massachusetts, right on the interstate, with a much better hotel than we've had at Boxborough in the past.
Great. I'm hoping, I think things will be a little different. We've decided, a few of us here in Waldo County, Huntsville, Alabama, we've been to Dayton the last 3 years. I've been to Orlando 2 hours. I've never been to Huntsville, and they're a go-ahead. Alabama is a go-ahead for August, so that's going to be interesting. I've never been to that one. It's one of the largest indoor climate-controlled Hamfest. So hopefully by summer, fall, I think things will get moving again with Hamfest and get-togethers and meetings. But that's all I have from here.
Thank you, Steve. And Corey was kind enough to post the information on Ham Exposition in the chat box there. And I just want to say that if there's any, what you would call silver lining at all to COVID, it's the fact that radio clubs now meet via Zoom, and it's given me the opportunity to visit with many, many clubs across New England, which I would not have had the opportunity to. Let's see, Phil Dugan, N1EP, asks, is the book on LF and MF bands available now? I don't think so. When I put that slideshow together, Phil, it said that it was coming soon. So if you don't see it yet on the bookstore, I guess it's not available. Sure. Anyone else?
See, Joe raised his hand. There you go.
Yeah, I got two questions here. One of them is, how you mentioned that they're doing virtual tours of W1AW. How would a local club be able to do that? Is there a form or someone we should email or call? And my second question is, I went on the ARRL's website after Riley's talked and looked at the volunteer monitoring program. And they're not accepting any new applications to help out with that. But what could we do in Maine if we wanted to get involved with interference, tracking down interference, and who do we talk to? And is anyone looking for help in that area? So those are my two questions. Thank you.
Okay, to answer the first question, I would drop an email to Joe Garcia, I think he calls it, CARCIA. His call is November Juliet 1 Quebec, NJ1Q, at ARRL.org. He is the station manager and trustee for W1AW. And he's been very kind enough to make these visits. He's also, I think, put together a recorded tour session as well, but you might be able to catch him for a live show. In terms of interference issues, I think clubs are still encouraged to form local interference committees to help locally. You're correct. They're not accepting any more applicants for as volunteer monitors, but you might still write to Riley and he might put you on a list. I don't know how he's handling that for the moment.
Yeah, he did mention in his talk that there is a waiting list that they do have names on. I'm not sure if they're accepting any more names, but there is a waiting list on that. And Joe, what we could do is maybe get together with Leo and see if he's got any recommendations for setting up a, maybe one or two groups, to cover the state where the state is so large.
Sure, that sounds good. Thank you.
Yep.
Corey, what are you saying here in chat?
So somebody was just asking about CW, KB7 SEA, Brian wants to know what's the best method for CW training. I've tried to get interest in the club for Elmers to give training, but no joy. Any suggestions? I was just putting in from my personal experience when I started getting an interest in CW, the Coke CW method, and you listen to two characters, it's usually M and K, and then you hear them randomly. And then once you're proficient in that, you add one. So it's the theory is you add one more character instead of learning all 26 at once. You're learning one additional character until you become proficient. So there's other way, you might have some other suggestions too.
I have a suggestion. Let me see if I can share my screen real quick here.
And when EP Phil had mentioned CW Ops Academy.
I was just going to say that, yes. There's a gentleman who's very active, too, in fact, down here in Eastern Mass, that you might want to email K1 Bravo Golf, who is our affiliated club coordinator, Bruce Blaine. And the other gentleman is Pi K1 RV, Kilo 1 Romeo Victor. They're both available at ARRL.net, I believe. And they're both very active in CW Academy. It's a wonderful program. It's something you can do on Zoom if you're not yet licensed. And John is also commenting. He highly recommends it.
Okay, thank you.
And it's been a while since I've listened to it, but I mean, to get them active in listening, the league, I believe, still does put out a daily CW practice, which is
Yes.
also available in MP3 format. So if you don't have time to listen or don't have the equipment, you should be able to download the MP3 file right from the league site and listen to the daily broadcast.
Correct.
Thank you all.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? I hear crickets.
And John Tarbrox just said that he did CW Ops Academy and he highly recommends it. So there is success there.
I will take a
All
look
right.
at that for sure.
Last
welcome,
call for
Phil.
any questions, comments, concerns.
I'll just put out that I'm available to visit your radio club virtually if you ever need a club speaker.
Okay, Joe raised his hand again.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, kind of as an administrative note, Corey and I will be sending out a survey at the conclusion of this. Just something to think about some things that went good, think about some things that went bad and how we can improve next time. And this has been a blast. Thank you.
And just so everyone knows, I mean, we literally slapped this together in 30 days. I mean, we've been talking about it for a while, but I mean, this was just the last 30 days, just saying, all right, let's get a plan going. We've had some learned lessons. We've had some things that worked well. We had some other things that didn't work well, but you don't know till you try. And you know what? At the end of the day, it got people together and I had a blast with the talks.
I did too. Yes, it was very good. You guys did a tremendous job. But I also got to thank, everybody that attended today. Without all the people that came in to join us, for the talks and everything, there would have been no sense to even have it. So, we really got to say thank you to all the hams that came in today and joined the virtual Hamfest.
Yes, thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.